I spent my entire life building skyscrapers meant to change the skyline, but I forgot to build the walls that could keep me warm in the evenings. Today, I will tell you how I traded a warm cup of tea in the hands of the woman I loved for the cold gleam of Chicago's glass towers. You sit just as motionless as I once did, and in your eyes, I see the same restless glimmer that kept me awake 70 years ago. It is strange to see your own youth sitting across from you, unable to touch it or warn it, though perhaps warning you is the last thing I would want to do. Old William, you're overthinking again. That's what I tell myself every morning when I look in the mirror at this network of wrinkles that has become my roadmap. I won't offer you truths because truths are stones, heavy and cold. I have only intuition, a warm premonition crystallized over 9 decades. You know, we are used to thinking that life is a series of major events, but in reality, it is just a long habit of the heart choosing a certain rhythm of breathing next to another person or alone with itself. I look at you and understand. You are in that state where every step feels fatal and every mistake feels like the end of the world. But time has a strange quality. It smooths sharp edges. What once seemed like a catastrophe now looks to me like a necessary plot turn, without which the picture would have been flat. Love and time are 2 elements we try to tame, but they tame us instead. We think we control time until it begins to control our memory. We think we control love until it makes us do things we believed ourselves incapable of. My main feeling now is not regret. No, it is a quiet astonishment at how precisely everything eventually fell into place, despite all my desperate attempts to ruin it. I will not teach you how to live. I will simply tell you how it was for me. How one single evening in Massachusetts, when I was just over 20, determined the trajectory of all my future winters and summers. This is not a story of success or failure. It is a story of how I learned not to rush when everything around me demanded speed. There will be facts, my mistakes, and my small victories, but remember, everything I say is permeated by one feeling: gratitude for having managed to notice life while it was still happening. I was 24, and I was overflowing with that particular form of selfishness we mistakenly call ambition. That year, Boston felt too small to me, and every day without a significant achievement felt wasted. I worked at a small architectural firm, drawing boring facades and dreaming of glass towers that would change the skyline. That was when Elizabeth appeared in my life. She was nothing like the women I had dated before. She lacked that feverish desire to please or keep up with fashion. She worked at the city library and had a strange habit of falling silent mid-sentence to listen to the sounds of the street. We had been together for 6 months, and our relationship resembled a quiet river, reliable, calm, but to me at the time, too predictable. That evening, which I remember down to the last movement of air, Mr. Galloway called me, one of the partners of a major firm in Chicago. He offered me a place on a team that was going to build a new business center. It was that very ticket to life people write about in newspapers. It meant an immediate move, 16-hour workdays, huge money, and status. But there was one condition: I had to be free. Galloway said directly that they were looking for young wolves, unburdened by families or obligations, because the project would demand total dedication for the next 5 years. I came to Elizabeth late that night. We sat next to each other, and I could feel the note with Galloway's number burning in my pocket. Two paths lay before me, absolutely clear and mutually exclusive. The first was Chicago. Bright lights, speed, success measurable in numbers and floor counts. It was the chance to become the person I wanted to see reflected in the eyes of others. It was the path of a winner, leaving the past behind for a dazzling tomorrow. The second path was quiet. To stay here in Boston, to continue working on small projects, walk through the park with Elizabeth in the evenings, buy groceries at the market every Saturday, and slowly build something without external shine, but with roots. It was the path of today, the path of an ordinary person. My motives then were simple and cruel. I was afraid of becoming mediocre, afraid that in 40 years I would look at my hands and see only ordinary things in them, not blueprints of skyscrapers. It seemed to me that love was something you could postpone, like dessert after the main course. But a career opportunity was a train that only departed once. I looked at Elizabeth and saw not the woman I loved, but an anchor holding me in the harbor while a storm was brewing at sea, a storm in which I so badly wanted to test my ship. I felt irritated by her calmness. Why wasn't she demanding more from me? Why was it enough for her just to be near? That evening, I didn't tell her about the offer. I stayed silent. But in my head, I was already packing my bags. I chose speed. I chose Chicago because I believed then that the volume of my life depended on the height of the buildings I would erect, not the depth of the feelings I would preserve. I acted not out of malice, but out of a deep conviction that self-realization was a debt I owed myself, even if the currency was broken hearts. I left her that night, feeling a strange mixture of triumph and emptiness. I didn't yet know that by choosing greatness, I was also choosing years of loneliness in hotel rooms. I only saw a map of Chicago before me and did not see the eyes of the woman who watched my back, probably understanding everything without a single word. Chicago welcomed me the way it welcomes all ambitious young men, with embraces of steel and glass. The next 10 years flew by in some kind of feverish pace. I really did build those towers. I became a partner in the firm before I was 40. My signature stood on blueprints that changed the city's appearance. But time is a strange thing. It doesn't flow evenly. It accumulates somewhere in the corners of the eyes and in the silence that comes after the office lights are turned off. I remember one evening, about 15 years after that choice, I stood on the balcony of my new apartment on the 30th floor. Everything was exactly as I had dreamed: panoramic windows, expensive furniture, status. That evening, I was supposed to celebrate the completion of a major contract, but instead of joy, I felt a strange cold. I suddenly remembered Elizabeth, not her face. It had faded a little in my memory, but the way she held a cup of tea with both hands. And for the first time in many years, I asked myself, what is this scale for? My towers were tall, but they were mute. They couldn't keep me warm in the evenings. I had success, but I didn't have a home I wanted to return to, not for sleep, but for the presence of another person. A few years later, there was another episode. I went to Boston on business. I deliberately didn't seek a meeting with her, but my feet carried me to that old library. I saw her from afar. She was walking down the street with a man and a small boy who was holding her hand and enthusiastically telling her something. She was laughing, with the same quiet inward laughter I once considered a sign of insufficient ambition. I stood in the shadows and watched them as if they were another planet. They had something that couldn't be designed or calculated in a budget. They belonged to each other. Then, sitting in an expensive hotel restaurant, I truly doubted for the first time. What if I was wrong back then? The thought was like a small crack in the foundation of a great building. You don't see it, but you know it's there. Maybe what I had called an anchor was actually my only chance at a real life. I chose the fast path, but where was I rushing to? To this lonely table overlooking someone else's city? These doubts didn't leave me at 50 or 60. Every time I reached another peak, I felt the air there growing thinner. There were other women, marriages that fell apart because of my constant busyness, friends who were more like business allies. And above it all hovered the same question, to which I had no answer. What was the price of that choice? Was that glass tower worth one quiet Saturday morning I could have lived entirely differently? I lived with that question for decades. It didn't hurt sharply. It was just background noise in my successful, eventful, but somehow chronically unfinished life. I became a master of my craft, but remained an apprentice in the art of simply being happy in the present moment. And here I am, in front of you. I am 90, and most of my towers already need major repairs, and some have been demolished altogether to build something even more modern. Time turned out to be the strictest architect. It leaves only what has real weight, and that is usually not concrete. You know, for a long time I lived with the feeling that somewhere back there in the past, I took the wrong turn. I punished myself for that choice in Boston, for my cold rationality. But now, sitting in this chair and feeling sunlight warming my old hands, I have come to a different conclusion. I no longer seek answers to the question, what if? Acceptance came not like thunder, but like an evening tide, quietly and inevitably. I realized that that young man, William, could not have acted differently. He had to live his script so that today I could sit here and understand the value of every breath. Perhaps if I had stayed back then, I would have spent my whole life tormenting Elizabeth with my unfulfilled dreams, blaming her for not becoming great. My selfishness then saved her from my own disappointment. Life does not have to be perfect to be right. Now I see that love is not only the presence of another person nearby, but also the ability to eventually love your own fate with all its gaps. I did not become a victim of my decisions. I became their result. There is no bitterness in my loneliness now, only clarity. The moral, if you're looking for one, is not about always choosing the quiet over the bright. It is that time will place everything where it belongs anyway. The main thing is not to fight the past, but to allow it to become your teacher, not your executioner. We all miscalculate when we are young. We think life is prey to be caught, but it is simply light that you must manage to feel on your skin before the sun goes down. I look at you and feel a quiet happiness, not because I know the answers, but because I have finally stopped asking questions. Life happened. It was complex, sometimes cold, but it was mine. And you know, if I were 24 again, I would take the same step again. Not because it was the best one, but because it led me to this moment of peace. Take care of yourself, and don't be afraid of your choices. In time, they will all become part of one great, calm river.